Okay, so I think everything's working. I think, maybe, possibly. What is up, my people? How you doing? Or you people, or the people, or they people, whatever the thing that goes with people does. Cool. Hello, everyone. How you doing tonight? How are you doing? Um, Badger is a bit delayed. Um, Coming back from work and all that stuff. I went and accompanied a long haul. Went from one side of the country to the other in a couple of days, and it was no easy feat either. Dear Lord, some of the roads we were on. Anyway, how's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? Let me know if you're here by jumping into the chat, because I don't trust YouTube's numbers game, whatever stuff, right? Because YouTube will show me like right now, YouTube says there's 0 people on the stream. That's what YouTube says. Um, so yeah, let me know in the chat that y'all are here. That way I know there's actually people in the live stream. Because YouTube lies to me all the time. I don't know if y'all notice this, but YouTube loves to lie to me. Mostly because I think differently from most people. So yeah. But yeah, good times, good times. Also, after this live stream, make sure you're in the Discord. If one of my moderators is in the chat right now, share the Discord invitation link live in the chat, please, so people can go join us on Discord afterwards if they want to chat with me directly after we do this stream. Um, you know, so yeah, and also let me know how your day is going. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Let me know. Let me know. Oh, brother. Oh, man, having a drink after so long. This tastes really good. Oh, but my back, dudes. My back. I gotta tighten up my core again. Because my back is suffering. But anyway, so how's everybody doing? Let me see the chat real fast. Actually, wait, let me do it this way. That way y'all can see that I'm looking at the chat. And I have no excuse for not seeing y'all. So give me a schmeckle. Give me a schmeckle. Okay, live chat is on. Let's see. Let's see. Who's in here? I don't know why, but my chat's been acting weird. Acting incredibly weird. And I don't like it. I don't like that. Okay. All right, so I have y'all on the screen with me, so you know I'm not ignoring you right now. So, Mr. L, hi. You're usually the first person here. Although I do have to tell y'all, stop sharing the NSFW stuff in the Discord. Por favor. Okay, you want to share it as DMs between each other, that's fine. That's perfectly okay. But I'm not going to have someone using that as an excuse to delete the Discord and then everybody's going to be wondering what happened. So yeah. Jaeger with the $5 dono. Love you too, Jaeger. 5 for the stream that we're doing tonight on Discord chat that I have no doubt will be a banger. You damn skippy son. We will be live on Discord after this live stream, okay? Derek KCB123. Hi. What's up, Derek? How you doing? Ghost. What? What? I know that reference. Mr. L, what's up? Been chatting to people in Discord. Man, they're mad at me, but that's their problem. Anyway, my life is pretty good. El Bonzo Zabab, I'm here. Welcome, El Bonzo. Mr. L, hi. Jaeger 3 times. Mr. L, you make yourself enemies. Also, how do I become a mod? 4.8 thousand subscribers here now. Okay. Mr. L, if asking for evidence makes me enemies, then that's a real problem for you guys, not me. Mr. L, okay, Badger. Normal Lobby, yo, yo. What up, Normal Lobby? Yeah, apologies, people. I got stuck doing other things. Man. Like, I did overtime, and then I did overtime, and I got stuck doing overtime because a couple of our drivers had family emergencies, and I'm supposed to only be a part-timer, but I was like, you know what? I need the money. So I went and did a 2,000 plus mile freaking trip. I went up to Idaho, and then we went to New York. Well, not directly into the state of New York, but we stopped like at the what's it called? I forgot the freaking name. I'm so tired. Anyway, yeah, I did a huge trip, and I got enough money to pay off some stuff, so that's nice. Plus, I have a little bit extra to like give my son a Christmas present. So, yeah, it's gonna be a small Christmas present, but he's still gonna love it. He's gonna love it. Anyway, Rook, hey man, good to see you. Check out more Dankula. Well, of course. Jaeger, I really don't give a damn. L, Mr. L, eating some sour cream and onion chips with French dip. Ghost, good stuff. Okay, so how many of y'all are ready for this Count Dankula thing? How many of y'all? And oh wait, Jaeger, you and Mr. L play nice, or I'm gonna silence both of you. Okay, it's all right to disagree and not see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, but you get more bees with honey than vinegar, people. Okay, I may be venomous sometimes, but I'm upfront about it, and I'm still willing to talk to people I don't like. So, yeah. That being said, let's get into this, shall we? Oh, wow, I forgot my screens change the size of the chat when I change in between. So, yeah, grab your alcoholism by the gently loving touch of the hands. And let's get into this, shall we? Let me restart my chat, because my chat, when I transition screens, it's all scrumpy. It's all weird. Anyway, let's get into it. So, Count Dankula. Absolute mad lads. Lauri, Allan, Torni. I know about this dude. And he is insane. He's an insane beast of a human being. So, excuse me. That being said, let's jump in.
It's no secret that we are all big fans of freedom on this channel. I believe that regardless of your values or background, you should have the right to live your life in whatever way you see fit, as long as you don't infringe on the rights of others. But unfortunately, not everyone agrees, and every time we as a society manage to get a good thing going, the spectre of authoritarianism rears its ugly head to insist that you don't have the right to be just left alone, while also fleecing you for all that you're worth.
Facts! Absolute facts. No step on snake.
In the 20th century, that spectre took on the guise of communism with the rise of the Soviet Union, and the boot came down so hard that it killed over 20 million people in Stalin's regime.
The estimates are closer to 50, my guy. The estimates are closer to 50 million. Including the time when Stalin was in charge of... Including the time that Stalin was freaking like one of the underdudes to Lenin, right? Because Stalin did a lot of sneaky stuff under Lenin's reign, essentially. Thus, why Lenin, like even though Lenin was a murderous bastard himself, he wasn't to the extreme extent, because he was starting to learn that he wouldn't be able to bring upon the utopia or even get close to it if he kept killing everyone. So that's the only reason why he stopped. And that's why he said, don't let Stalin take over. Or at least that's the last time I checked up on this. But yeah, the estimates are closer to 50 million. The USSR like shot themselves in the foot for like the next like 100 years. And they're still suffering heavily.
So it shouldn't come as a surprise that many people have a searing hatred for communists, especially after they started to invade other countries.
Facts. Absolute facts. All right, let's keep going.
And one man hated communists so much that he gave everything he had to fight back. Even after the war for his homeland had ended, he stopped at nothing to make the Soviets pay. And he didn't particularly care who he had to work with in order to do it.
So he's like me.
Major Lauri Torni, the soldier of 3 armies.
This man was such an impossible beastly dude. Such an impossibly beastly dude. Impossibly. I can't think of any other way to get that across, except he was a complete beast of a human being in every freaking way, shape, and form. I mean, he even was able to get himself out of certain assignments that people would find questionable and bad, just so he could stay on the front line and fight the Reds. Dude was so much. Anyway, let's keep going.
Please leave a like and a comment on this video because it really helps me in the algorithm. But before we get into the video...
Love Count Dankula's intro. Love it. Love it. Let's keep going.
It is in fact your boy, Raid Shadow Legends. Raid has transformed...
Nope, not falling for this one again. YouTube demonetizes literally for me like playing the freaking monetization of another channel. It's so freaking dumb. It's so freaking dumb. But, you know, I gotta operate under their rules or it's tough luck. Let's keep going.
In the province of Viipuri in Finland, where he had a pretty normal childhood. In school, he did very well in sports, especially skiing and boxing. Because Finnish. However, it quickly became apparent that Torni was very stubborn while growing up, and he ended up having to repeat a year of school because he refused to sing, which was part of his classes for some reason.
Oh yeah. And I believe to this very day it's the same. I believe to this very day it's still the same. I think it's still part of the thing for like them to sing in the army. It's not too much different from like the U.S. Army, because like if you're stuck doing like, you know, regular soldiery drudgery, you have something called drill and ceremony. In drill and ceremony, you have to parade. You have to know how to parade. You have to know how to step and maneuver as part of a formation, kind of like the old days, you know, with musket and ball. And you also have to be able to sing like the army song, the unit songs, the regimental songs, the division songs. You have to be able to like say creeds of different types, and you have to sing them all in unison. You have to be able to parade with your weapons, or you'll have parade weapons you'll specifically have to train on, kind of like the old guard does, except not to that extent. You got shine and polish boots, and you have to sing cadence when you walk or run. It's not too much different from that, I don't think, or as far as somebody tried to tell me. They were speaking to me about it. But yeah, anyway, let's keep going.
And judging by the lifelong seething grudge that we will get into soon, I think it's safe to say that stubbornness would continue to be one of his defining traits well into adulthood. In September of 1938, while in business school, an 18-year-old Torni volunteered for military service by joining the Army Reserves, just in time for duty to call. You see, the Soviet Union wanted some strategically important Finnish islands and a military base, while Finland wanted their territory to not be stolen. So, naturally, there was a bit of a conflict of interest there, and when the two countries reached an impasse, the Soviets decided to invade on the 30th of November 1939, starting the Winter War.
And for the longest time, the Finns were winning. The Finns were absolutely wrecking the Russian army. And Finland only had a population of like, I want to say like 20 million, 10 million or something like that. Whereas Russia at the time had like 108 plus million. And their army was like 10 times the size of Finland's army. Yet they were getting crushed by the Finnish military. Good on you, Finland. Good on you. And now we're seeing history repeat itself with Russia versus Ukraine. Yeah. Kind of funny how when you let the left run a country purely, they kind of fail at everything, don't they?
Now, you would think that such an overwhelming force marching into such a small country means that the war would be over in about 5 seconds, but no, it was actually close. To put it extremely mildly, as we discussed in our White Death video, the Soviet leadership were absolutely fucking atrocious. They had no idea what the fuck they were doing, because Stalin had purged all the competent generals. So, the Red Army wasn't really equipped for the invasion, metaphorically and literally. The men were terribly trained and they were sent in wearing green uniforms. They went to fight a war in Finland in the winter wearing green uniforms. Compare that to what the Finns were wearing. Can you see why Simo Hawa didn't need a scope? But while the Soviet forces were an absolute shambles, the Finns were very well organised. Their army and reserves were mobilised immediately, with many men going straight to the front lines with their own clothes and personal weapons. Torni himself went out to meet the Soviet invaders as part of the 4th Jaeger Infantry Battalion, where he quickly impressed his superiors on the battlefield by stealthing his way deep behind enemy lines on skis to restore communications between his unit and headquarters. As luck would have it, well, for Torni at least, there was a shortage of officers at the time, probably because the Soviets were killing them all. So, Torni was sent to reserve officer school. His grades weren't great, but he more than made up for it by being heavily awarded for combat, which earned him the rank of 2nd lieutenant.
Look at that face. Look at that face. The dude's ready to go crush some leftists. He's ready to go crush them. And he did. Many times. Bub. Freaking beast. Freaking beast. What's funny though is that he's either the same height or taller than me. And he's like a lot thinner than I am. But yeah. All right, let me read the chat real fast. Derek KCB, the White Death. Yes, Finland churned out like some beastly, like godlike soldiers. Mr. L, Winter War is interesting and wild. Proves numbers aren't everything. Facts. Mr. L, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Facts. Rook, Perkele. I think I said it right. Mr. L, very true. Well, the U.S. had green uniforms. Mr. Mad Hatter, more ginger. It's coming up. I'm just doing this live stream because I'm doing Count Dankula right now. But I will try to do some more reactions tomorrow. I just got done with doing overtime for 3 different jobs. And then today is like my off day for all of them. Well, okay, technically tonight, but whatever. So yeah, then tomorrow afternoon or evening, I'll do up some uploads. Mr. L, Disney is a corporation. All they care for is money. Yes. Noram Lobby. It's important to remember that many Soviet troops were conscripted from USSR countries and forced to fight. Indeed, they were. Mr. L, bro, this Finn just looks annoyed. I love it. I just love it. He's like, when can I go kill more of them? Noram Lobby. Watch more Sabaton. It will be done. Okay. It's just that right now we're doing a live stream. Okay. We're doing a live stream with something that may or may not be copyright content. And I'll find out how YouTube feels about this content after I release the live stream, essentially. Midnight Storm. Yeah, sorry. I clogged up his pipes with requests. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All of y'all that were posting NSFW stuff, get it out of the general chat for the Discord. Get it out of there. If you want to DM that stuff to each other, that's perfectly fine. But, yeah, just don't put that in the general chat. Please. I got enough times I got to fight freaking Discord to keep the Discord server around as it is. Y'all do not please stop giving them any more reasons to delete our Discord, okay? Just me having one is bad enough, apparently. Anyway, let us continue.
Now a commissioned officer, Lieutenant Torni found himself in charge of his own company of hardy Scandinavians that were moulded by the frigid Norse climate, like angry, grizzled snowmen, and more than able and willing to eviscerate a bunch of untrained Soviet conscripts. The only problem was they all spoke Swedish. So not only did Torni have to cross Soviet lines, but also a language barrier. However, he took this in his stride and he led his men by example. Like saying, when I start shooting, join in. They also seemed to understand the assignment whenever Torni said, let's blow up the invaders. Which his unit had learned because that was pretty much the only thing he said to them. This leadership style, aided by hand gestures, led to devastating results for the Soviets as Torni and his men wiped out entire rifle divisions and even a tank battalion. While Torni himself was an absolute weapon in his own right, he came from very good stock. While the Soviets almost went out of their way to make themselves easy pickings, the Finnish resistance to the invasion hinged on the strategic brilliance of its men. Snipers absolutely devastated the Soviet forces, while the rank and file employed guerrilla tactics to ravage their enemies deep behind Soviet lines, cutting off entire sections of the Red Army and wiping them out while they were vulnerable.
And what's funny is that a lot of these tactics that the Finns used for their unconventional warfare were later incorporated into the unconventional warfare doctrine for the Green Berets, for SOG and MACV guys. It's a really cool part of history.
They also used mannequins to inflate their perceived numbers, chucked Molotov cocktails into tanks to blow them up, and, for good measure, they put Soviet corpses on display as a scare tactic. Though I think that the scariest thing that the Finns did was trolling the Soviet airwaves. Yeah, the Finns trolled the Russians by blasting Saki Yarvin Polka across all of the Russian radio channels 24 hours a day. Imagine suddenly waking up in the middle of the night to a Finnish ambush, the cracks of rifles being your alarm clock. You're desperately scrambling to the radio to call for help as your mate's brains get sprayed all over your face, and this is all you can hear. Now, if you can't hear anything right now, that means we couldn't find a copyright-free version. Danke, YouTube. But just imagine the sheer confusion and terror of watching your entire unit being slaughtered from the shadows in a great crimson wave riding atop fucking skis of all things, and a happy poker song is the backing track to your demise. Over the next year.
I know exactly which one he's talking about, I'm pretty sure also. I'm very certain I know which one that is. I'm very certain which one it is. But yeah. You just hear polka. And there's just a bunch of guys like skiing towards you with rifles. Like, the Finns are here. I love it. I love it. Let's keep going.
Year and a half, the Finns butchered wave after wave of Soviets until the invasion finally ended on the 13th of March 1940. Torni and his countrymen had put up one hell of a fight, killing around 6 times more men than they had lost. But, unfortunately, it wasn't quite enough. In an ingenious move, the Soviets had gone right back to basics and employed an unstoppable strategy that was pioneered by the ancient Romans. Chucking an inexhaustible supply of men face first into the meat grinder until the enemy runs out of steam.
Pretty much. Pretty much. Man. Oh yeah. Somebody please link that song that he was talking about either in the chat or put it in Discord if you know which one I'm talking about. Because we're going to listen to it on Discord, okay? So we're going to be on the live chat for Discord after this, the live general chat for Discord. That's where y'all can talk to me directly, interact with me directly, ask me questions, say things, blah, 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 whatever. So yeah, after this live stream is done, we're going to be on Discord live voice chat. So somebody share that Discord link in the chat, please, so people can join the Discord and get in there. All right, let's continue.
Even though their KD ratio had crashed straight through the fucking gutter, the Soviets had managed to claw themselves a Pyrrhic victory. With the signing of the peace treaty, Russia got 10% of Finland's territory, including Torni's hometown of Vyborg. Even though Torni had been awarded with the first and second class Medals of Liberty for his efforts, I don't think the consolation prize was worth the loss of his home. With nothing to do now that the fight was over, depressed, Torni ended up drinking heavily and getting into fights. However, the peace would not last long, and Torni would soon get another chance to take his anger out on his real enemy. The Winter War had gone so badly for the Soviets that not only do many people to this day, including me, consider it to be a Finnish victory, but Germany took notice. As Jerry watched the carnage reduce the Soviet advance to a stalemate, he thought to himself, yeah, I can probably take him. And yeah, that is a pretty reasonable assumption to make when you have one of the most powerful war machines in history set into overdrive, yet they could barely handle a bunch of angry Finns on skis. So the Germans jumped into action with a massive invasion of the Soviet Union known as Operation Barbarossa. On the 22nd of June 1941, the Germans poured almost 4 million men into Russia and got absolutely fucking clowned on. By the end of the 6-month campaign, all the Germans had to show for their attempted invasion was almost 200,000 dead men, a complete shitshow of an Eastern Front that absolutely fucked their chances of winning World War II, and the inspiration for one of Sabaton's best songs, but...
Didn't someone just in the chat recommend another Sabaton song? I love it. I love it. Hell, the Count is a fan of Sabaton as well. I knew the Count was an alright dude. Love Count Dankula. Love it. Alright, Mr. Mad Hatter. Sounds like Ukraine today. Indeed. Mr. L, definitely. Derek KCB based. Facts. Mr. L, trolling the Reds. That's bloody brilliant. Yes. Rook twice. The Finns still play that song for their Independence Day. Mad Hatter used to play a simulation called Operation Flashpoint, and I had a Finnish Defense Force mod that was awesome. Operation Flashpoint, dude, like way back in the day. You're talking about the one from the 90s, right? Operation Flashpoint? That was a good game. That was a good game. Mr. L, I got Operation Flashpoint on my Xbox One. It's pretty good. Rook, full circle. No, in the lobby. You can't escape Sabaton Badger. No, I can't. And I don't intend to. But now I'm turning into a human version of the United States being pulled in all directions. So I'll just deal with things as I can. I'll do reactions as I can. Anyway, how many of y'all are willing to wait for like a minute? Because Badger is dry. Okay, so plenty of you are willing to wait for a minute. Okay, cool. I'll be right back. Give me a minute. Because Badger needs some stuff to put in his tummy and set a fire to his soul. Okay, I'm back. Let's see how many people left, because you know they have no virtue for patience. Let's find out. Urgh. Damn my back. Sometimes I wish I didn't have a spine. All right, let's see who's still here. Let me see, Mr. L, a human version of the United States. Well, it's literal, okay? Mr. Mad Hatter. There used to be a Finnish metal band called Irrit. They did the theme music for the mod. Mr. Mad Hatter, okay. Rook, good deal. Mr. L, cool it Hatter. All right, let's see how many people left. Well, YouTube's telling me there is 2 people in the live stream, so I guess 8 people left? Shoot, I don't freaking know. I don't know. Let's just continue the video. I got my drink. All right. I got my drink, so let's jump in.
But what does that have to do with Torni? Well, not all of the German forces got sent into the meat grinder. So Finland found themselves with an unlikely source of support. You know the old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my... Well, I can't exactly say friend because, you know, Nazis and all that. But
the enemy of my enemy is my secondary enemy. How's that? How's that one?
You get the idea. The Finns entered into an informal alliance with Germany, giving them passage into the Soviet Union through Finland in exchange for the arms and training they would need to reclaim their land. On the 25th of June 1941, 3 days after Operation Barbarossa began, it was time for round 2. The continuation war. But before the Finns could really bring out the red in the Red Army, they had to make sure that they were ready for the counter-attack. So, Torni and 288 of his Finnish comrades were trained by the Waffen-SS in Germany. He soon returned to Finland with the rank of Untersturmführer, which is essentially a second lieutenant, certifying that he was ready to bring the fight to the Soviets with a hotter fury than ever.
Yeah, which is understandable. It really is. It's really understandable. Like, you know, if I was in Lauri's shoes, um, and like the Reds were given my hometown, and the Germans were fighting the Reds, and everybody else was fighting the Reds, I'd join in on that fight. I wouldn't care who I was fighting, because it just means that by the time we're done with them, well, the NZs are next. The NZs would probably be next, probably, or at least like if the NZs like honored their word with the finish, maybe they'd be left alone. But I don't think so. I don't think so. But yeah, personally, I really wish that we had followed through with General Patton. Like after World War II technically was done, we should have then took down the USSR because they started it all. All of it. Their ideology and everything was what spread throughout parts of Europe and started this whole mess in the first place. So yeah, like I wish that they had thought about who, those that came after them, right? Like people complain about baby boomers all the time and how they set up all this stuff for everybody to like inherit. I'm not technically a boomer. But I get what people mean by that, right? They weren't thinking of the generation after them or the next few generations. They were trying to stop stuff right now. They weren't thinking about what would come afterwards. And yeah, Europe was tired of war. Europe was tired of having a war, but then after that, what did we get? The Cold War. After that, what did we get? The rise of communism throughout most of the world. After that, what did we get? The end of the Cold War and a bunch of broken countries. Like, all right, I'm going to stop rambling. People really hate it when I ramble, and people hate that I think differently. So, yeah. Thoughts and stuff. Let's keep going.
But don't worry, this isn't a villain origin story. Torni was just so angry over losing his hometown where he grew up that he didn't care who he had to work with to get it back. Torni may now technically be an SS officer, but he had no intention of going native. In fact, Torni got on with the Germans so poorly that he was actually sent back to Finland, which means he probably dodged a lot more than just one bullet because holy fuck was Operation Barbarossa a disaster.
Oh yeah, and if accounts from others that knew him are accurate, that I've read, he actually was ordered several times as part of like some kind of like, if I remember correctly, like an indoctrination scheme. Like, okay, now you're going to be just as bad as the rest of us in the SS, and you're going to go and serve time at some of these concentration camps. And Lauri was like, no, if you're not going to send me to the front, I'm not going anywhere. I don't care who you are. That's me putting it very simply. But according to those accounts, he was an SS officer just in rank and name and participation in the war, but he completely like got away from having anything to do with prisoners. So yeah, freaking. And you know what? Honestly, for those actions, he could have been declared mutinous and just executed. But he was such an asset and such an absolute unit that they were just like, well, we can't waste him, so we have to send him somewhere else. So let's send him back to Finland. Anyway, let's keep going. Anyway, by the way, this is stuff that I myself read or I'm kind of remembering because, I was the beneficiary of some of the doctrine that Larry helped to incorporate into the United States military. I'll put it that way. But yeah, let's continue.
But while Torni wasn't goose-stepping back to Finland, he did manage to get a lot out of his trip to Germany. that would become very useful in the fights to come, such as their training, their resources, and their unbelievable fucking drip. Look, I am sorry. Hugo Boss did nothing wrong. Oh, I never learned, do I?
He said they're what? They're drab. What drab? They're drab. What drab? Was this olive drab? I thought their uniforms were like gray and black. Did they actually use like drab? Somebody help me out here. I thought their uniforms were only ever like gray and black. I thought that's what they were the whole time. Can somebody help me out? Did they actually use olive drab like the Allies did? No running in my lobby. Well, if you want to talk about who started it, Marx was German. That's true. That's true. Mr. L, Operation Unthinkable? I mean, I'm all for destroying the Reds, but I don't think the Allies could have taken them. I mean, maybe we could have. Who knows? Unfortunately, Mr. L, a huge amount of the ideology that you believe in actually does come from all the same roots. All of it. Unfortunately. But yeah, the Allies could have easily taken Russia in the weakened state they were in. Easily. If everybody was like, you know what, you're next. Could have been done. It could have been done. Rook, MacArthur wanted to go full Monty and nuke Mao China in the 50s. We could have. We could have and stopped that right in its tracks immediately, just like we did with Japan. But everybody was already tired of that stuff. El Bonzo Zibab, I'm with you. Rook, Hugo Voss designed the outfits. Okay. Mr. L, drip is slang, someone's awesome sense of style. Oh, okay. Rook, he designed their outfits. He was a fashion designer. Okay. Mr. L, I think he said drip. No Lobby, he said drip, yeah. Rook, yeah. Okay. So it wasn't drab, it was drip. Okay, well, I've learned a new modernistic version of style. So, okay, cool. Let's continue.
Fucking drip. Look, I am sorry. Hugo.
Oh, yeah. Somebody share that. Somebody please share the Discord server link in the chat. Por favor.
Hugo Boss did nothing wrong. Oh, I never learned, do I? While the Russians were busy mincing ungodly amounts of sauerkraut, the Finns set out to reclaim their lost territory, and Torni was given his own elite unit named Detachment Torni, and he got to handpick the men himself. This band of Baltic and glorious bastards specialised in carrying out reconnaissance and guerrilla warfare behind enemy lines, with orders to capture Soviet troops, disable transport, and generally scare the ever-loving shit out of the commies. And they really scared the fuck out of the commies. Detachment Torni got so far behind enemy lines that they used Soviet weapons to ensure they wouldn't run out of ammo while raiding their headquarters and communication sites. During a recon mission on the 23rd of March 1942, Torni was severely injured when he skied over a landmine, which threatened to leave him in the sickbay for weeks. However, time spent recovering was time not spent killing communists. So, despite the fact that not all of the shrapnel had been removed from him yet, Torni escaped from the hospital and got stuck back into the carnage, earning himself an Iron Cross for leading his men into a firefight to rescue a wounded officer.
He escaped from the hospital. Of course. Of course he did. You know what? I feel like we were made differently back then. We were made very different back then. Nowadays, we're all soft as hell and we're weak and pathetic, honestly. Compared to the men of yesteryear, like, bub. That's what it feels like to me. But you let me know what y'all think.
Oh, and they did that charge while rattling off machine guns on skis. They were firing machine guns while skiing into battle. Now, I know that sounds goofy and ridiculous as hell, but I don't think it would have been for the Soviets on the receiving end of it. Detachment Torni was a force to be reckoned with. They did so much damage and inflicted so many casualties that a 3 million Finnish mark bounty was put on Torni's head by the Soviets, which is roughly 700,000 US dollars. And he was reportedly the only Finnish soldier that was singled out like this during this particular conflict. I know in the last conflict it was Simo Hawa, which is probably the greatest honour that Torni received in his career. Imagine making your enemy so fucking scared of you that they issue a bounty. I mean, Torni is an enemy soldier in a war. It was already the Soviet troops' job to kill him, but he was such a terrifying force in nature that the higher-ups had to provide a 7-figure incentive to get them to actually fight him. However, the only thing that this bounty did was give Torni even more clout, because it was never claimed. After Torni proved that the only person that could possibly hurt him was himself, he and his detachment continued their reign of terror until the 9th of June 1944, when the Red Army launched an attack on the Karelian Isthmus. Torni and his detachment ended up surrounded, resulting in the loss of many, many men. Soviet men, because Detachment Torni just tore that encirclement manoeuvre to shreds, and for good measure, Torni went on his own mission behind Soviet lines and stole their battle plans, which helped his commanders bring the Soviet attack on Karelia to a grinding halt. About a month later, Detachment Torni was ordered to hold a strategically important crossroads against an onslaught of 4,000 Soviet troops. However, by this point, his unit had been whittled down to fewer than 100 men. So, what did he do? Did he find a bottleneck to trap the Soviets in? Did he just go for a good old-fashioned heroic last stand? Nope. He made a decision that surely had the great DM in the sky wringing his hands together with glee. He split the party. Torni divided his men into much smaller units and had them pick off the Soviets while constantly on the move, hoping that it would trick the Soviets into believing they were up against a much bigger force. The next thing that Torni did was roll a nat 20 on his deception check, because it fucking worked. Once again, a Soviet advance was halted by hundreds of men suddenly becoming good communists. However,
he rolled a 20 on his check. It's so true, though. It's so true, because it worked. It worked. When you overestimate your opponent, like in every facet of your battle strategy and all that kind of stuff, more often than not, you're going to succeed. Because you do stuff like this. Well, I love this dude. I love hearing about him all the time.
This was no ordinary battle. As the massacre went on, Torni suddenly found himself seriously injured by the most powerful man on the Eastern Front, a final boss that Torni barely escaped with his life. Himself. It was himself. He stepped on another fucking mine. He stepped on another fucking mine. How could someone so badass go down like such a fucking idiot? As Torni recovered from the injuries to his body, and probably his ego as well, he found out that he had been promoted to captain and awarded with the Cross of Mannerheim, which is the Finnish equivalent of the Yanks Medal of Honor or our Victoria Cross. For his heroic and ingenious defence of that crossroads, Torni received the highest award in the land for gallantry, which came with a cash prize of 50,000 marks. So, to celebrate, Torni went out with the boys and they all completely drank the money away. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Despite being the MVP of the continuation war and carrying the Finnish counterattack, he couldn't quite clutch a victory. As powerful as the Finnish meat grinder was, the Soviets still had too much fodder to handle. So, the continuation war came to a disappointing end on the 19th of September 1944. Once again, there were humiliating concessions for Finland, including handing over more land, demobilising most of their army, paying a ton of reparations, and legalising the Communist Party of Finland.
When you legalize any derivative of communism everywhere or anywhere at all, you give any concessions to them at all. Yeah, you've played yourself. And I guess it just goes to show, like, okay, look, people are going to be like, well, they made these concessions so that they could survive. Well, okay. How about you think about the next generations after you? Or would you rather condemn them to a slow, agonizing, painful suffering? Or do you want to actually stop something worse? That's a huge question.
Never again would Torni's hometown be a part of Finland. But the worst part of this treaty was the fact that the Finns were also told to kick out the Germans, which started the Lapland War between the Finns and their former allies. The Finns just couldn't catch a break, but hey-ho, at least they managed to win this new war. However, Torni did not take part in the Lapland War, because he was among the troops that had been demobilised. But he was far from done with fighting the Soviets. The unemployed Torni went fuck this and took a U-boat to Hamburg, and he joined the Germans as part of a resistance movement that aimed to carry out a boogaloo against the Soviets in Finland. The SS started to train him in sabotage, but the programme ended up being cut short by the Red Army's advance. Because of this, Torni ultimately ended up sticking around in Germany for the rest of the war because everything was going to shit and he had actually missed the last boat back to Finland. So he just thought to himself, well, if the Soviets are coming here anyway, I might as well just hang around and fight them here. And fight them he did until he finally saw the writing on the wall and made a tactical move that saved he and his men's lives. He marched over to West Germany as the war came to a close so that they could all surrender to the British instead of the Soviets, because the British were nice to POWs and the Soviets were not. However, Torni did not stay in the POW camp that the Brits put him in for too long. He heard that a bunch of the prisoners were going to be sent to the Soviets for trial. Torni knew that if he was one of them, the British would essentially be signing his death warrant. He was also worried that the British would find out about his past membership of the SS. Torni decided not to take the risk of finding out if he was being transferred or not, and instead just escaped, finally returning to the homeland that he fought so hard to protect. However, he did not receive the welcome that he expected. He was instead immediately arrested for high treason by his own ungrateful people who were really keen to wash their hands of any association with their former allies. I mean, I can see why the fact that Torni had joined the SS is a little bit of a bad look, you know, but it's not as if he actually got on well with them. He didn't agree with them. He never had any intentions of actually fighting for the Germans. He only did it as an excuse to kill communists. However, Finland was still more or less at the mercy of the Soviets, so you can understand why Torni was treated like this.
Sure, I guess, but gosh damn, I'd be a horrible president. If I were the leader of a nation, my military would be the most cherished and treasured thing there is. Right next to all of those that run the infrastructure. And everybody else would be secondary to that. I mean, damn, you just do not catch a break as a soldier. You just don't.
It also didn't help that members of the newly legalised Communist Party had weaseled their way into pretty powerful positions, including the head of Finland's intelligence service.
Of course. You let any communism at all inside of your country, it's just a matter of time before they screw everything up and they create all these fake parties that are actually communism in everything but name.
But the public perception of what was essentially a show trial was actually very polarised. Despite the perception that Torni was a Nazi war criminal, there were many that believed him to be a hero, that just had a raging hate boner for communists, and he had his judgment affected by his horniness for slaughtering the Red Army. In October of 1946, Torni was sentenced to 6 years in prison, but he was out by the following spring, casually strolling through the exit to freedom, completely unbeknownst to the guards because he escaped. He just pretty much says, "Alright, I'm a head out," and then he just walked out the front door. However, Torni soon found himself back behind bars, but not because he was caught. The authorities falsely accused Torni of theft to flush him out, so he turned himself in again to clear his name. Torni sacrificed his freedom and got an extra 6 months added to his sentence because he couldn't bear the false smear on his reputation. Part of me thinks that's kind of stupid, part of me kind of admires that. But sometime later, he tried to escape again by abseiling out of an unsecured window with a grappling hook that he made out of bedsheets and scrap metal. However, this attempt was not successful. Torni was very quickly spotted by a guard that took a shot at him. Luckily, the rifle malfunctioned, but being spotted was enough, and Torni was quickly recaptured. As Soviet influence over Finland diminished over time, the country eventually became uncooked enough for its president to give one of its best warriors a break. Torni was pardoned less than halfway through his sentence in December of 1948. He still served 2 years too many, but what can you do? However, Torni was not given a hero's welcome back into society. He was stripped of his rank, and he had his name removed from official war records. And as if that dishonour wasn't bad enough, he also found himself to be really unpopular on the outside. Despite his pardon, the fact that he had fought with the Germans left a permanent black mark on Torni's reputation, and he was under constant suspicion. Feeling betrayed by his fatherland, unhappy with the Scipio Africanus treatment, and eager for a fresh start, Torni moved to Sweden in 1949 under the name of Lass, or Lassie. I don't know, Scandi language, who cares? He went from cutting down commies to cutting down trees while waiting for his application for a Venezuelan visa to be accepted. He was still very concerned about the fact that the Soviets really wanted him to be extradited for trial as a German collaborator. So he of course planned to emigrate to South America, just like many other people in a similar situation. The plan was for Torni to join a community of fellow Finnish expats in Venezuela, where he would work odd jobs to get by as he made a new life for himself.
Man, Venezuela back then. It wasn't so terrible back then. From everything that I've read and heard about, it wasn't so terrible back then. It really wasn't. Nowadays, though, good luck. Bub, good luck. Anyway, so Badger is dry. So hang out for like a minute. Get along in the chat, please. Also, join the Discord. The link should be in the chat. So join the Discord so you can talk to me on voice chat later on Discord. I'll be back in about a minute. Okay. Let's see how many people left. If there's actually anybody left in here, actually. Let me see. YouTube says that there is 2 people. I love how YouTube likes to lie to me, but whatever. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Make sure y'all jump into the Discord later, okay?
But before his visa could arrive, something unexpected happened that threw a wrench into his entire plan. A woman. While he was lumberjacking his waiting period away, Torni met a girl named Marja Cops, and he fell happily in love with her. So much so that they moved into her parents' villa near Stockholm together. After spending the 40s fighting and dealing with the consequences of war, Torni and the love of his life celebrated the start of the new decade by getting engaged on the 1st of January 1950. Marja then excitedly went to Finland to pick Torni's military uniform for him to wear on the big day. However, while she was away, the time came for Torni to take a trip of his own. His Venezuelan visa arrived, and he was so worried about the Soviets managing to get him extradited that he couldn't afford to wait for Marja to return. Torni made the tough choice and got onto the ship to Venezuela, leaving his fiancée behind with only a promise. "I'll come back to pick you up. You will receive my word of honour as an officer and a gentleman." Torni landed in Caracas in March of 1950 for what ultimately became a glorified pit stop. During a stint as a sailor on a cargo ship bound for the United States, Torni decided to pursue the American dream. So, on the 20th of September 1950, he just jumped off the fucking boat. He just leaps overboard in the Gulf of Mexico and then just swam to the United States. So, from the beaches of Mobile, Alabama, Torni then made his way to Brooklyn, where the Finnish-American community gave him a hand in getting set up with a carpentry job.
So he just jumped off the boat. That's one part I never heard. That's one part I never heard before. Was that he jumped on a boat, jumped off the boat in the Gulf of Mexico and swam. Oh wait, maybe I have heard about it, and people guesstimate how far he had to swim. Some people said it was 20 miles. He was off the coast or something like that. Some people say that, and then I think other ones, there was a debate. Some people try to say he swam 50 miles or something. And I'm like, I don't know about that one. I mean, he was a beast, an absolute man's man, but 50 miles, I don't know. Or maybe. I don't know. We can debate it ourselves when we get into the Discord voice chat later. Make sure you jump in the Discord.
But Torni didn't have very long to get settled in his new home because he was arrested by the feds in 1951. Because back then America actually had an immigration policy. However, being something of a living legend had its perks because Torni happened to be friends with the president of a Finnish Veterans Association, who managed to introduce Torni to one of the bigwigs over at the OSS. William Wild Bill Donovan. Donovan saw that Torni's prowess as a commando could be a real benefit to the CIA precursor. So he pulled some strings and Torni had a residence permit by 1953. After all, it was the height of the Red Scare.
A living legend, dude. Larry Thorne, or Lauri Allan Torni, was such an incredible inspiration for some of us. And if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. I have to keep many things vague because there's multiple different ways to avoid people trying to come after you. Unless they already know who you are, then that's a different story. But you try to limit it, right? Any shoot. Let me read the chat real fast. Clano Banana Shenanigans. Wait, let me look back farther. Rook, good point. Mr. O, grappling hook, clan of banana shenanigans. I'm surprised you didn't try to get an internship. Mr. O, fins first to the moon. Northern Malawi, there's 12. Derek KCB, I see 12. Mr. L, yep, there's 12. Clan of banana shenanigans, indeed 12. 12 what? Are y'all talking about seeing people on the live stream? Because YouTube is literally showing me still right now there's only 3 people in the chat. So technically 3 participants on the live stream. So that means the live stream only has 3 people viewing it, as far as I'm aware. And I only see like maybe 3 or 4 of y'all in the chat. So I don't know. YouTube likes to lie to me. I can't help that. Let me see. Rook. There's a book called Prisoners of the Castle. It goes into escape attempts from prisoner camps for officers. Highly recommend. Okay. Mr. L. They're kill ya and keep you alive from what I've seen of the fairer sex. Western women, that is. Mr. L. He jumped off the boat. Mad Hatter. Wet. I'm not going to say that, but he's a Finn who got wet. Mr. L. Could you swim 20 miles at Badger? The farthest I ever swam was around 20 kilometers. That's the farthest. And that was like a training swim, okay? That was training. It wasn't like free, swimming with just, trunks or just clothing on my back and that's it, right? We had gear, we had all sorts of equipment and stuff we were using to make it that far with the least amount of risk possible. So I honestly don't know if I could free swim like 20 miles. I have no idea. Mr. Rook, that's insane. Mr. L. The Count also has a video on Timothy Dexter as well. Mad Hatter, people in chat, 9 now. Yeah, YouTube likes to lie to me. I guess it's part of their discouragement campaign. Anyway, let's keep going.
Why would we deport one of the Soviets' boogeymen? Also, isn't it really weird how the CIA is involved in so many mad lads? It's super strange, but anyway, as a newly minted American citizen, Torni then made good on his promise to his fiancée. However, it was too late. While Torni was off trying to get established in the new world, the couple had drifted apart, and by the time he returned, Marja had found someone else and moved to Las Palmas on the Canary Islands.
Of course. Western women, that's how, that's just par for the course, essentially. Let's keep going.
Despite being one of Finland's biggest badasses and the scourge of the Red Army, it seemed like settling down was the one mission that Torni just wasn't equipped for. So, in January of 1954, it was time for him to embrace his destiny. The commies were still out there, and peace was clearly not an option. The seasoned warrior adopted his third flag and took up arms once again. Captain Lauri Allan Torni became Private Larry Allen Thorne of the US Army. With this fresh start, he finally had one less L to his name. That's such a shite joke. While the Lodge-Philbin Act had allowed a foreign national like the newly christened Thorne to enlist, he had to do so as a private. So he was stuck doing basic training with 19-year-olds at the age of 34.
Hi there. Is there a project you're working on?
I know more than you.
All right.
However, his English wasn't too great, so he got by in a similar manner to his Swedish unit. Hand gestures and swearing. But this language barrier didn't stall his progress up the chain of command because, once again, he had some Finnish American friends to help him out. They managed to get him into Special Forces, where he underwent further specialised training and he became an officer for the third time, just 3 years after entering basic. This specialised training was a mountain and arid cold weather survival course. Now, just call me out if I'm wrong, but I believe that Thorne may already know a thing or two about that. But
now, I spoke to, I will say this much. I had the privilege of speaking to one of the last surviving instructors from that time. One of the last surviving school cadre from that time who actually got to meet Larry Thorne. And he described to me the experience of him, like, you know, being a cadre, right? To this guy, and then realizing immediately upon every single thing that they were doing, that this dude was so far ahead of them, and even him as a cadre. So after a while, apparently, I don't. This is his account of things, right? I don't know if he was, you know, kind of playing it up just a little tiny bit because he really admired Larry. But he said a few times he just, you know, got it across to Larry what the point of what they were doing was for the day or whatever. And he just allowed Larry to, like, show people things. So, like, Bob, man. Anyway, but yeah, I got to speak with him, and it was quite the thing to hear about Larry Thorne, or as he's actually known as Larry Allan Torni. But yeah, dude, just something else. Or actually, for certain reasons, maybe I heard this secondhand account of a firsthand account experience. Totally, yeah. I've never been anywhere near that. Totally not. If you know, you know. Let's keep going.
The Yanks did have a thing or two to teach Thorne as they put him through a paratrooper course, where he then began teaching himself at the Special Warfare School at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, where he instructed his fellow soldiers in skiing, survival, mountaineering, and guerrilla tactics. Because finish. At this point, Thorne was really floating it down the career track. After all, he'd already done it twice, so in 1957 he was commissioned as an officer in the Army Signal Corps, where...
Bub, like I said earlier, he looks so ready to go and, you know, put steel through the bodies of some Reds. He's so ready. The look says it all. Literally all of it.
Well, he ended up getting a lot of action. They say that all is fair in love and war, and it turns out that at this stage in his career, Thorne really gave his all in both. He may never have married, but unsurprisingly, he proved himself to be a real Chad. At every single party he went to, he reportedly had a single-minded determination to leave with whoever caught his eye, whether she was single or not.
Sounds like a man after my own heart nowadays. Sounds like a man after my own heart. I'm carrying on the tradition, Larry. I am.
But despite having the highest body count in the Green Berets, in both senses, Thorne still spent plenty of nights out in the town with the boys, where he partied as hard as he fought. However, as many night outs tend to do, these two things often overlapped. In December of 1958, while serving with the 11th Airborne Division in Bavaria, Thorne got himself into a little bit of a scrap at a bar, which ended with him throwing some of the locals out of a window. Now, that sounds like a pretty badass, albeit tame, night out by Scottish standards, but it ended up landing Thorne in serious trouble. He was court-martialed. But, as it so happened, most of the Germans that he had just beaten the shit out of had criminal records, and the police were actually looking for two of them. So, you could argue that Thorne actually did them a favour. Thorne was acquitted the following October, but he did not return to the 11th Airborne Division. Instead, Thorn took a transfer to West Germany to serve with the 10th Group of Special Forces, better known...
I'll tell you all this much. Some of my favorite people ever that I know that I will never be able to mention on this channel. Ever. Unless they explicitly make themselves public. Similar to how I have. Some of my favorite people ever have been in 10th Group. Actually, pretty much most of them. Like 90% of them have been in 10th Group. I don't know if it's the number. I don't know if it's because of where they're located. I really don't know. But every single one of them are some of the most amazing human beings I've ever known. And ever will know, I think. So yeah. Shout out to 10th Special Forces, my guys. Seriously. Shout out.
Known as the Green Berets. True to form, he severely outperformed everyone, with one commanding officer remarking, "I have not known any officer in his grade to whom he can be compared. He is over 40 years old, but he has the physical ability of a person of 25.
So, y'all let me know who that sounds like.
Needless to say that Thorn was such a nasty physical force that the Green Berets had no choice but to make him a legend. So he was soon promoted to captain. In 1962, Thorn served as the second in command of a search and rescue mission in Iran, on its border with Turkey and the Soviet Union in the Zagros Mountains. The mission was to recover bodies and classified documents from a crashed plane. The mission was so dangerous that this was actually the 4th attempt, but Thorn's unrelenting spirit was credited for its success. But while Thorn was having a very productive career with the Green Berets, the work he was doing wasn't exactly what he was born for. He was born to kill commies. I mean, sure, he was kicking as much arse as ever, but his true enemies were still out there and just out of reach. However, that would soon change as the 1960s rolled around.
The Vietnam War, baby! And Larry actually had a lot to do with the doctrine moving forward from Vietnam as well. He's somewhat credited, but somewhat not. It's really hard to explain. In some of the TMs and FMs and stuff from around that period, there's a lot that I've been told was actually very much attributed to him, but kind of, sort of not, because somebody else also had a hand in making the book and whatever. But yeah, dude. Well, like I said way earlier in the live stream, this dude most certainly had a hand in a lot of our UW, and a lot of our, different types of TTPs, SOPs, and battlefield doctrine when it comes to a lot of things. So this guy was like the penultimate bridge for the improvement of special forces to a huge degree. So yeah, let's keep going.
The commies were at it again.
It's Vietnam now, baby. It's Vietnam!
In early 1963, Thorn found himself stationed at the Civilian Irregular Defence Group Camp in T Bien in Vietnam, where he worked with South Vietnamese forces as a military advisor. In this role, he taught them guerrilla tactics and helped fend off Viet Cong attacks on their bases, continuing his own tradition of giving everything you have to fight a guerrilla war against communist opposition with the aid of a military superpower, kicking an ungodly amount of arse in the process, and then losing. But just because his role in the...
Yeah, if we had not allowed the left to have a hand in the say of how the war was run, we probably could have won Vietnam. We could have. But the left got so involved and so deeply rooted that we just had no choice but to lose. Because everybody was like going towards too far left, essentially. You know, and for guys, for the dudes I talked to that came from that era, right? Which is not too far removed from my own, much as my face doesn't show it. I talked to them, I interviewed them, or I went out of my way to find them and be like, okay, hey, like, share with me what your experience was. And the vast majority of them all told me, once we allowed these certain types of people to affect how our country did war, that's when we started to lose. And that's when we knew it all went downhill. So, yeah. Make of that what you will.
The Vietnam War was only an advisory one doesn't mean that Thorn didn't get his own fair share of the carnage. Viet Cong forces eventually breached the perimeter of the camp, and Thorn and his entire detachment were injured in its defence. But nevertheless, they all stood their ground and managed to prevent the place from being completely overrun, which earned Thorn a Bronze Star and 2 Purple Hearts. His injuries also gave him the chance to be transferred out of combat, which he naturally turned down. In fact, not only did he refuse to take it easy, but the fucking unit actually requested to be put in charge of a special operations base while he was still injured.
So, I don't know if y'all have picked up on it yet, but one of my biggest heroes ever in the history of anything was this dude. Was him. It was Larry Thorn. And I may have failed horribly. I failed horribly. Trying to get to his level in any way I could. But I do count myself several brain cells lower than him. Okay. Not without merit. Not without merit. But I was never able to get close to... I was just never able to get close to the absolute legendary status of him. I just couldn't do it. Whether that was something born into me, or whether it was because I was just inferior, or because I was lacking something, doesn't really matter. I still failed. In a huge way, by my own estimation. I did old schools. I was on the pipeline for freaking ever. I kept coming back to the same things, but I failed ultimately. One of my ultimate goals was to at least match the absolute unit that was Larry Thorn, and I failed in every possible way. So when y'all see me expressing regrets, think about who I was setting my bar for, essentially. So yeah, my bar was set really high. Yeah, did I accomplish a good amount of things? Sure. But to my mind, I never, ever accomplished my objective. And that's a regret I will live to experience until the day I'm dead. It will always be the largest regret in my entire life. Is not at least meeting the bar and standard set by Larry Thorn. So yeah. Make of that what you will. I'm dry. I'm really dry. So y'all give me like 5 minutes. I'll be back, okay? Give me like 5 minutes tops, but a minute tops, actually. What's up, buddy?
A taste.
Huh?
A taste.
Gesundheit.
A taste.
What up?
A taste.
Say it again, buddy.
A taste.
A taste?
No, a taste.
A taste?
No. Correctly.
Okay. Give me a sec, y'all. My son needs some help, and I'm dry, so give me a sec. What are you saying, buddy? Oh, it changed. Oh, okay. It changed? Okay. You want slime game? I can't find it, buddy. Let me see. That one? Okay. There you go. What do you say? You're welcome, buddy. I love you too. Give me another. I love you, buddy. Okay? I love you. All right. Go lay down. Get warm. Give me a schmeckle. We didn't sing kumbaya, we string with straight pipes on 305. All right, let's see how many people left because they don't have a virtue. That's called patience. All right, let's see how many people are not virtuous. Or maybe I'm just a shit person and they just leave. That's fine too. All right, let me check it. Okay. Let me see. Participants, there's one. Oh well, too bad, I guess. I'm just not there. I'm just not good with it. Too bad. Too bad. I'm going to continue anyway, even though there's only one of you here. So, yeah. Anyway, y'all ready? Let's go. Badger's got his drink. You know, the spawn of Badger. wasn't able to have a good time and go to sleep happily, so let's go.
However, Thorn's tour couldn't last forever. After having more than done his duty, he eventually returned home for a well-earned rest. But there was just one problem. Thorn couldn't kill any communists at home. It was clear that Thorn still had plenty more fight in him, so he went back to the jungle. In February of 1965, Thorn volunteered for a second tour with an off-the-books unit named Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observations Group.
Or as they call them, MACV-SOG. You're welcome.
Which played an advisory role, specialising in unconventional warfare. On the 18th of October 1965, Thorn joined this unit on a clandestine search and destroy mission in Laos.
Oh, by the way, can y'all pick out Thorn from this entire crowd right here? Y'all let me know. Which one is Thorn? Which one is Larry Thorn? You tell me. Alright, so everybody cast your votes. So which one is Larry Thorn? Y'all tell me. Y'all tell me, bub. Man. All right, let me read the chat real fast. There's nobody there anyway, so let me check it. All right, so Mr. L, the spawn of badger, Lamau. Well, hopefully there will be many spawn of badger. I no longer care if women stay in my life anymore. I just don't care. As long as I got kids. As long as I got kids, and then, in the next 14 years, 15 years, if I don't get enough kids, I'll just adopt some. And there we go. I just want kids. That's all. Is that too much to ask for? Derek KCB, far left. Okay. Mr. Mad Hatter, big guy on the left. All right. Mr. L, big guy with that hat on the left from our view. He's got an M14 from the looks of it. Okay. So far, I know for a fact there's like 4 of you here. Even though YouTube says there's 1 or 2. Gotta love YouTube. Gotta love YouTube. Anyway, I don't know if you can see the cursor, but this is Larry Thorn right here. Looking like his absolute badass self right here. This is Larry. That's Larry right there. Bob, what a monster of a man. Anyway, let's keep going.
Which was outside of the jurisdiction of the United States, because as if that's ever fucking stopped them. The job was carrying out airstrikes in a bid to sabotage Viet Cong movements across the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Thorn was in a unmarked helicopter directing support to his men on the ground. But the mission was made very difficult because the weather was not in their favour at all. The conditions were so bad that visibility was almost non-existent, and the other helicopters had to climb up to 8,000 feet before they could see over the clouds. However, Thorn refused to order his helicopter to leave because, despite the awful weather conditions, he wouldn't abandon his men on the ground. Only once the mission was eventually completed did he finally withdraw. But by this point, it was too late. 5 minutes after Thorn gave the order to haul arse out of there, his helicopter disappeared among the mountains of Vietnam's Phuoc Song district within Quang Nam province. Despite more than 50 attempts, no crash site was found during the rescue operation. because mostly of the thick tree cover, and also because it was very difficult to send teams in because America wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. So, sadly, there was no other option than to declare Captain Larry Thorn dead on the 19th of October 1966 at the age of 47. That's actually kind of weird because today's date is the 19th of October 2022. It's the anniversary of his death right now. Huh.
And a lot of us still to this day, unrelated to the special warfare programs, we still celebrate the passing of one of the greatest legends of anti-leftism possible. And that's Larry Thorn.
Weird. For his heroics, he was posthumously promoted to Major and awarded the Legion of Merit and Distinguished Flying Cross. However, his loss wasn't in vain. His men had located and called in 51 airstrikes against supply stations across the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And they all lived to tell the tale, meaning that Thorn's final mission was a success, even if the war as a whole was not. However, not everyone took this declaration very well. There were those that believed that Thorn hadn't died at all. After all, how could such a powerful legend go out in such an anticlimactic fashion? There were whispers that Thorn had actually been caught by the Soviets and met his end in a gulag, while others believed he was still out there fighting the good fight against the commies like those Japanese holdouts fighting World War II like 30 years after it ended. Personally, I like to think he died as he lived, giving everything he could to fight against communism and fully cementing himself as the only person that could harm himself. But regardless of what happened, Thorn's old war buddies and other veterans across the US and Finland would raise a toast to him every year, wherever he may be. But while decades passed with no news of Thorn's fate, he couldn't evade discovery forever. In 1999, Thorn's helicopter was finally found on the Laotian border by Joint Task Force Full Accounting, where it was discovered that the helicopter had crashed into the side of a mountain. And sadly, in the wreckage, they found Thorn's body. After 33 years, Thorn's remains, his Swedish-made machine pistol, and the remains of his crew were recovered from the crash site. After the remains were formally identified and returned to the United States, Thorn was finally laid to rest with full military honours in Arlington Cemetery on the 26th of June 2003. Buried alongside him are his comrades from that fateful mission: Lieutenant Baltong Nguyen, First Lieutenant T. Long Pha, and Sergeant Van Lan Bui. And the pilot Wee Gon Crash. I'm sorry. Thorn left behind a pretty complex legacy, as you can see from his rather unique roster of awards. And the fact is, he is actually the only member of the Waffen SS to have ever been buried at Arlington Cemetery. Unfortunately, the Nazi allegations haunted his reputation for the rest of his life. You know, can relate. But while there are a few out there that believe that Thorn went native in the worst possible way, it isn't hard to figure out what his true nature was. Because pretty much...
Oh, give me a sec, everybody. Give me a sec. What's up? What's up?
Who is me?
What's wrong?
This implant.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Pronunciate your words, buddy.
It says the point and
Pronunciate.
This is for real time. A long time with the and
Okay, so they're really timed out. Is that your show playing right now?
yeah.
Check it out. Is it playing?
Yeah.
Go make sure. Come back. Is it playing?
Yeah.
Are you happy with it playing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I stop and I start this
Well, buddy, you have to understand that when the show stops, you're not going to hear it for a while, okay?
Okay.
So you have to be patient. You have to wait like we do when we walk all over town, right? When we're walking across the street and it tells us to wait. Okay?
Okay.
All right. You going to go watch the show?
Yeah.
All right. Make sure you shut the door and get warm, okay?
Okay.
All right. Love you, buddy.
Listen.
Good night. All right. So, let me get back to the show. All right. So, where were we? Let's go.
Everyone that knew him would be eager to tell you. The man just really fucking hated communists. He hated them. They took his hometown from him and murdered his friends. Right? He hated them, and he didn't care who he had to work with to get back at them. One of Thorn's commanding officers said that he would, and I quote, fight to serve with him again under similar conditions, particularly in combat requiring great maturity, perseverance, physical and moral courage, and personal leadership. And this is just one of many, many ways that Thorn has had his praises sung, because he was, by all accounts, a great fucking guy that was loved by everyone that met him. You know, as long as they were on the right side of the battlefield. Moino Koivisto, one of Thorn's fellow soldiers who went on to become Finland's president, also said, and I quote, Torni as a leader was liked. In many ways, he emphasised that we are all the same bunch, and he bore his share just like the others. He did not ask anyone to do something that he did not do himself. He carried his own load, marched at the lead, and was one of us. To this day, Thorn seems to remain the gold standard for what a good soldier should be. As a US Army Special Forces colonel put it in 2010, he was a complex yet driven man who valorously fought oppression under 3 flags and didn't acknowledge the meaning of quit. The US Army Special Forces continues to honour Thorn's legacy with the Larry Thorn Award, which is given annually to the toughest Green Beret detachment. Though I doubt that any of them could match the sheer grit and indomitable spirit of the great man himself. In addition to his acclaim amongst the military, it shouldn't come as much of a surprise that a soldier of such legendary fame and renown has made a considerable mark on pop culture. After all, he has been one of the most requested mad lads that we have ever covered. Like, Lauri Torni was up there in the top 5. So many people were asking for Lauri Torni. And also, Thorn's defence of the Civilian Irregular Defence Group camp in Vietnam actually inspired a book, which was then adapted into a John Wayne movie that everyone fucking hated. And also, and possibly most importantly, the story of his career was immortalised with an absolute banger of a Sabaton song. Even though Thorn...
And, okay, for those of y'all who are Sabaton fans, I am a fledgling, okay? I'm a newtilig, right? I've yet to experience the full category, okay? So give me some time. Please, give me some time. I will eventually get to this one on Sabaton's list. You have my word, it will happen before I'm dead, okay? Or, actually, I don't know, because they keep telling me I'm going to die in like 3 months, and I just don't. So, I don't know. I don't even know when I'm going to die anymore, apparently. Anyway, let's keep going.
Was on the losing side of every single war he fought in. It is always the great strength and courage of men like him that make a real positive change in the world. He never once gave up the fight for what he believed in, and the way his sheer dedication surely inspired countless others to do the same might just be his greatest victory. Unfortunately, he didn't get to live long enough to see the collapse of the tyrants that took his home from him.
Collapse, kind of, I guess. Break up, maybe.
Some people say that Larry Thorne is a very complex character with a very complex career. But, to be perfectly honest, it can all be boiled down to the man just really fucking hated communists.
Just like me. All right, y'all. There we go. Count Dankula, absolute mad lads. Larry Thorne, as we know him in the U.S., or Larry Allan Torni. Y'all let me know how you feel about that one. Let me know how you feel about it. Okay, so, all right. Wait, actually, I should exit out all this stuff and show the chat live on the screen. So, my bad, y'all. My bad. I'll make it happen. All right. So, I'll expand out the chat. Y'all have, like, maybe 15 minutes before I completely stop doing the live stream. So, transition over. Cool! Not really. I want to make myself bigger. There we go. I'm big now. Anyway, okay. So, let me see what y'all see in the chat. All right. So, let me shmee. The last one I saw was Mad Hatter. Control freaks like McNamara, I guess. Mr. L, to the public eyes, it looked like the war was not being won and was unwinnable to some people. Plus the news coverage didn't help the war effort. No, it did not. Nora Malabi, damn hippies, you damn skippy. Mr. L 3 times. Plus Mad Hatter, as the Pantera song says, be yourself by yourself. You can't be something you're not. Absolute facts. Absolute facts. Mr. L, I've changed the way aliens work. Very true. Well, I don't know about yourself. Sounds kind of lonely. Cool. Mad Hatter, you can't be someone you're not. You have to find your own way. Mad Hatter, 8. Ghost, mine says 7. Jaeger, Mr. L, yep, Mad Hatter. Derek KCB, YouTube is so broken. It is. Ghost, 8 now. I don't know what you're counting, but I'm assuming it's like the participation count. But YouTube lies to me all the time, so I have no idea. Mr. L, the spawn of Badger, Lamau. I love my little buddy. He's awesome. Derek KCB, far left. No, just the left. Nowadays, it's just the left. That's it. Mr. Mad Hatter, big on the left. Mr. L, the guy with the hat on the left from our view. He's got an M14 from the looks of it. It's probably the big guy, most likely Jaeger, second guy from the left. Mr. L, nice. Mr. L, wait, he's not considered MIA? Mr. L, I mean, life happens, so he probably smashed to a mountain or died fighting the bloody evil Reds. Mad Hatter, we gonna crash. Lamau. Okay, Mr. O. M14 was terrible at pretty much everything. Say that to the ABR 14, soak 'em. It's 39. I thought it'd be colder here. What about you guys? Well, it's only 35 here, so we're good. I got the windows open and everything. Ghost, nice to see you interact with this kid. I wasn't so interested. Raising well, Badger. Yeah, I'm doing my best. As a single father. Mr. L, sorry about that. It's kind of funny he lost every war. Badger wants to be big. Jaeger, I think I have a character inspiration. Okay, cool. All right, so there we go, folks. There we go. That was Larry Thorne, or Lauri Allan Torni, absolute mad lads from Count Dankula. What did y'all think? Y'all let me know. All right, so I will be in the Discord in about 10 minutes at the very most. I'll be in the Discord general voice chat. Oh yeah, you little idiots that were in the Discord chat sharing NSFW stuff in the general chat. Get it the hell out of there. If y'all don't get that NSFW stuff out of there within an hour, I'm going to start deleting everybody involved. F with me and find out. I'm cool with y'all being jackanapes to each other, but don't share stuff that's going to screw up the freaking Discord server. Seriously. If it's a DM between you and somebody else, I don't care. I got nothing to do with it. But sharing it in my general chat is absolutely a no-go. And I'm really mad. So, y'all got an hour to get all the NSFW stuff out of the general chat before I completely delete everybody involved. Make it happen. Make it happen. Understood? So yeah, y'all got an hour. Get all that shit out of my general chat. If it's going to be a private thing, cool. I don't care. But the general chat is for everybody. So get it out of there. NSFW stuff, get it out now. All right. That being said, I will be in the general voice chat within 10 minutes tops. So yeah. I love you guys. I'm happy you were here with me. I don't know how much of y'all there were, but I still love you. Okay? I still love you. That being said, I'll try to do more uploads tomorrow. I'll actually try to spam uploads tomorrow. Okay? So look forward to that. That being said, I'll end it like I usually do. Be good. Be safe. Make good life for yourselves. And I'll see y'all in about 10 minutes or 24 hours. Badger out.